Today's topic is plagiarism, and if you've got 5 minutes, I've got 5 tips to help you avoid it. Well, the word plagiarism should strike terror into the hearts of anyone who ever wrote a paper in university or even in high school or in college. But even if you never wrote any kind of an academic paper, and you think that everything that you write is completely your own, I'm going to suggest to you that it's time that you started to think about the possibility that plagiarism could enter into your work and how to avoid it. One of the things you need to understand is that plagiarism, even if it's inadvertent, comes at a very steep price. Sometimes it's just for your reputation, and your reputation is very important as a writer, and sometimes it can be financial. When I was a university professor, I had a long section in every course syllabus explaining to the students that even the whiff of plagiarism was going to have a detrimental effect on their grade and potentially on their career in the university. That's how important plagiarism is to people who write. And if you think that professors or your readers in the future will never notice, will never find out, you couldn't be more wrong, especially these days when we have digital technology to help us find plagiarism. A few years ago, I read a student paper, and it happened to be a course on health communication, and the student's assignment was to write a feature article about a health-related issue for a magazine. As I read the student's article, I came upon a passage that didn't quite sound like the passage that had been previous. I kept reading a little bit and found that it didn't really sound at all like him. All I did was I copied and pasted a paragraph of his paper into Google, into a search engine. And lo and behold, quite a few hits came up, because not only had it been used in one paper online, but in many papers. So in fact, he had probably plagiarized a plagiarized piece to begin with. And then I had to deal with him and what we would do with his dishonesty. Of course, he failed the course. So no matter what you write, whether you write short stories, novels, magazine articles, blog pieces, it is possible that you're plagiarizing, even if you don't realize it. And it's time you took a good hard look at your work to make sure it's all your own. So here are my 5 tips to help you to avoid plagiarism. Tip number 1 is make sure you understand exactly what plagiarism is. Now let's look at a dictionary definition of the word plagiarism. Plagiarism means closely imitating the language and thoughts of another author without authorization, and the representation of that author's work as one's own, as by not crediting the original author. And lest you think I'm plagiarizing, that definition came from dictionary.com. Now here's my definition, which is slightly simpler. Plagiarism means using someone else's work, their ideas or words, and using them as if they were your own. Now, once you understand this, you can begin to analyze your own work to determine how much of it has been accumulated from ideas and thoughts that you've found from other people, and how much of it is clearly your own. Tip number 2, keep track of every single source that you consult. And what I mean is not just the sources that you're actually going to use as references in a paper, in a story, in a book, but ones that you're not going to use as well. When you're doing research, for example, for a non-fiction piece, obviously most of that has to be credited if you are using information from someone else. If you're writing a fiction piece and this is background material, you have to be very careful that you've only gathered that information and had it become really part of your background so that you write your story on your own. If you find yourself actually quoting a piece or using ideas in a particular way that aren't yours, then that's plagiarism. Tip number 3 is to focus on your own ideas. Now, the truth of the matter is that we all read a lot, see a lot, hear a lot throughout our lives, and we're affected by that. And the thoughts that we have and the material that we write and the creative ideas that we have are often instigated by some of what we've read before. But putting ideas and thoughts and notions into a new and innovative way of seeing them, a unique way that's really yours, is what you're really looking for. You're not looking to recreate what someone else has done. If you do that, you're plagiarizing. The truth is, you have your own ideas. Focus on that. Tip number 4. Don't mistake paraphrasing, which is taking someone else's words and thoughts and putting them into your own words, as avoiding plagiarism. Even paraphrasing an idea that belongs to someone else can be considered plagiarism. And if you want to quote someone, by all means do it. There's no problem with that. In fact, people really enjoy being quoted. But make sure that you credit the source of that quote in your material so that your readers know where it came from, and your readers could look for the original source if they want to. For example, I used a quote at the beginning of each chapter in my most recent novel, but I quoted the source of that quote in every instance. Tip number 5, be careful about self-plagiarism. Oh yes, that's a thing, self-plagiarism. You can plagiarize yourself. Dr. Ben Mudrak, writing in the American journal Expert Scholar, defines self-plagiarism this way: any attempt to take any of your own previously published text, papers, or research results and make it appear brand new. In other words, if you're sending a manuscript of a book to a publisher, or you're sending an article to a magazine, the editor has the right to expect that that has never been published before, not even substantially. In other words, if you've written something in a book before and you decide to repackage it and send it out to another publisher and republish it, that's self-plagiarism. And that's unacceptable from an ethical point of view in the writing world, and you risk your reputation as a writer. It is true that you can approach a topic in a new and different way, a topic you may have written about before, and it's not self-plagiarism if you're viewing it in a completely different way and the material is new and innovative. So keep in mind the notion of self-plagiarism. So now you know. So I want to ask you this question. If someone were to take a piece of your work and pop it into a search engine, would they come up with any results to suggest that you may have plagiarized? I sure hope not. Talk to you next time. Subscribe to Write, Fix, Repeat. And maybe I can help you improve your writing knowledge and skills, 5 tips at a time.